You're there. You're part of it. You're not part of a group of 15, Tim, which isn't bad. Don't get me wrong, mate. Or you're not part of a group of 60, which isn't bad. Don't get me wrong. It's you and him. You're being steved off by Angelo Dundee as you have a club sandwich and you're discussing the merits of club sandwiches worldwide, and he's telling you about conning Ali, and Ali conned him in the Rumble in the Jungle, and something in your head's going, yes, do not stop talking, Angelo. Talk for 2 solid days. My dictaphone, I'll get a new one. Carry on.
16 world champions. I mean, that is
what
incredible.
are you going to do?
The other guy, Gil Clancy, you talked about him being basically this confident fight guru, the last of a dying breed, impeccably turned out, tremendously well organized. You met him when you were up at the Poconos, and this was the Foreman and Jerry Cooney fight.
It was a chance encounter. I was in New York, and this trip was being organised. I've been writing for about 3 or 4 years, and I heard about this trip, and so he had to go to Madison Square Garden or whatever it was, 8 in the morning. It was quite early, and I got on the bus, and I was sitting in the seat behind Gil, and he was talking, and I'd never seen him in the flesh, but I knew who he was. I was a big fan of Emil Griffiths, who was his most famous fighter, and I knew Gil Clancy because he was, if not on a par with Dundee, just next to Dundee. Dundee was slightly more of a publicist in the sense he was involved in bigger fights, but Gil's track record was impeccable, and I knew he was a good storyteller. And so in all of this, again, a bit like not having seen the fighters fight, I hadn't seen Gil in the flesh, but I knew all about it. So I'm sitting behind him, just edging closer to the gap between the 2 seats, and he was just talking casually to various people and turning round and catching your eye, and then talking later on. Then him and Jerry were sitting around, and again, it's one of those occasions when you have to pinch yourself because you're in the middle of this ridiculous set of circumstances. You're sitting there with Gil Clancy preparing Jerry Cooney to fight George Foreman in the Poconos, a famous boxing venue, and you got on a bus that morning outside Madison Square Garden. I mean, that's kind of dream stuff for a boxing journalist or a boxing broadcaster or whatever it is I claim to be these days. And over the years, I got to know Jerry Cooney. So fast forward 30 odd years, I got to know Jerry Cooney very well. And I also got to see 3 of the last 4 George Foreman fights. And I dread to look in the book in case I managed to miss them all, because I seem to have been rubbish at recording real things. I've just managed to put in there 80 ideas. No, I did, that's true. George is in the book. So that was... Yeah, I mean, you talked about generational. You're dealing with a man who is involved in some incredible fights. Gil Clancy in the early 60s, and then George Foreman, who was involved in legendary fights in the middle of the 70s, and Jerry Cooney, who was involved in one of the greatest and most infamous fights in history when he fought Larry Holmes in Caesars in Las Vegas. And it's all there. It's all in one room. It's all in one little gym, and it's fairly intimate. There's maybe 10 or 15 of you. That's you can't. I don't know, maybe we have too much access now, I don't know, but I don't get that anymore. I don't get that kind of thing. I love everything I do, don't get me wrong, it's a dream job. People would sell their grannies to be in my slipstream carrying my typewriter. But I don't get that sense and feeling anymore. It's really weird. Whereas maybe it's because I've got older, I don't know. But I'm trying to think the last time I got that sense. I mean, if I sit down with Chris Eubank or Nigel Benn or even Joe Calzaghe, or certainly Lennox Lewis, and I can transport myself back 25, 30 years, I can be reminded of that. But I don't get it as I walk into a room. If I walk into
ironic, really, when you talked about Gil Clancy in the preparation ET. I watched that fight last night, actually, and the American commentators were saying, well, he's prepared him physically, but with Jerry, as we all know, it is all about the mental state.
That's the truth, yeah.
If you stand and trade with George Foreman, you're in trouble. He can knock a horse out if he hits him right.